With this presentation, I will be introducing the topic of physician-assisted suicide and the various arguments and perspectives on why this practice should be legalized in a greater number of countries and states. So for the cover image on this slide, I chose to create an image that encompasses the idea of physician-assisted suicide, which is ultimately allowing a suffering individual with a terminal disease to end their life while being assisted by a medical professional, as portrayed in the image. This next slide displays general information about this topic. So, physician-assisted suicide is a practice when a medical professional, such as a doctor or physician, facilitates a patient's death by providing necessary information and procedures to allow the ill individual to terminate their life on their own terms. And these bullet points give information on the different procedures and tools used within this practice. So this practice can be carried out by taking a lethal dose of sleeping pills or through a lethal injection. As for the equipment, a deliverance machine is a laptop computer connected to a syringe that allows a person to self-administer the drug, and a thanatron was developed to mechanically deliver drugs through an IV. This is a graph I made that displays the most common reasons why people would choose death by assisted suicide. So the most common reason was found to be the inability to perform in once enjoyed activities. Another reason was for the depletion of autonomy, and the last reason was for the diminishing sense of dignity. The link on this slide is an audio I made that describes how I became interested in this topic through a personal family experience, and the link for this can be found in the description of this video. This slide begins one of the main arguments surrounding this practice, and that is one's autonomy. This infographic gives information about the term and why it matters in this practice. So it defines autonomy as the right or condition to self-government, and this is expressed by individuals making their own decisions without others' influences. It then explains the importance of autonomy in everyday life, as well in difficult situations. And remaining autonomous in these situations demonstrates a sense of strength and understanding of one's condition. Lastly, the infographic explains the several roles of autonomy in assisted suicide, such as some believing this value should be promoted, while others believe it should be exercised. So these viewpoints will be further discussed in the next slide. So this slide gives common perspectives on this practice, either supporting or opposing it. For the supporting side, people believe that this practice serves as a mechanism to maintain their own autonomy, and this is by a suffering individual making their own decisions. Some also believe that autonomy should be exercised, as it is a primary value that everyone has a right to utilize. Another idea in support of physician-assisted suicide claims that when a person continues to suffer, this causes their autonomy to diminish, and this is because they oftentimes choose to prolong their life based off of others' opinions or wants, which is why they should have the choice to choose this practice. As for the opposing side, some say that this practice obstructs autonomy. Although a person would end their life, their autonomy was exercised in the process, as they made the most beneficial decision for their condition. This also goes along with the claim that autonomy should be protected, but if this value is not used, an individual would have no choice but to continue their suffering through a terminal illness, which would have no cure. The last idea is that assisted suicide does not respect this value. Many disagree with this claim, however, because a person is willingly choosing to end their own life and making the decision for themselves, which displays self-respect. Another perspective in support of this practice is authenticity. So the denotation of this term is being true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. When a patient suffers from a fatal disease, some claim that these individuals appear as a different person, as their physical, mental, and social health changes. This would also display that the patient's sense of authenticity was diminished. With physician-assisted suicide, a person could stay true to their own beliefs if the immense amount of pain and suffering was no longer bearable. These illnesses also cause patients to lose the regular, everyday rhythm of their lives. As every patient should stay authentic to their own thoughts on their condition, assisted suicide may make prolonging a burdensome life less of an obligation. This slide summarizes the main points of the previous slides on autonomy and authenticity, through comparing and contrasting these two topics surrounding this practice. With one side demonstrating the supporting ideas around authenticity, the main ideas displayed are staying true to oneself, not feeling like oneself, and life becoming inauthentic when core values are obstructed through an illness. The other side, with ideas opposing this practice with information from the topic of autonomy, claims that autonomy may be destructed by this practice when it should instead be promoted and protected. The similarities between these two arguments include a patient being competent, so having the ability to assess their condition, and also that both sides are important factors and should be considered. The next topic refers to a patient dying with a sense of dignity. So, a patient having the ability to respect their condition displays the intrinsic value that every person possesses to remain dignified. And assisted suicide would end a patient's suffering while also having a sense of dignity. This also gives patients psychological reassurance, as patients would no longer feel obligated to continue their painful suffering and can choose to end their life with their dignity preserved. It is also important to not insist on prolonging a patient's life, as this may negate their dignity. Allowing a person to end their life on their own terms would display a sense of empathy and understanding of the person's condition. Although many states and countries have not yet legalized this practice, this audio on this slide and linked in the description explains how Oregon's Death with Dignity Act had gone into effect. While a patient's perspective is immensely important when suffering from an illness, others' outlooks are important as well. So this slide gives both positive and negative viewpoints of medical professionals on physician-assisted suicide. With the positive elements, doctors always strive to accommodate patients' requests, as they want to help an individual in every way possible. With a particular patient's condition, professionals may view this practice as the most beneficial option if a patient's condition is unlikely to improve. Doctors and physicians may also take the family of the patient into consideration, as the practice may aid their medical expenses and also allow for relief, as they no longer have to watch a relative suffer. Some unfortunate outlooks on this practice is the possibility that these professionals would not strive to engage in ending a patient's life. While this may be the case in some instances, some professionals may still support this practice. Although medical professionals are commonly viewed with the purpose of healing patients, this practice could contradict this idea. Although many may view healthcare professionals in this way, the practice may open up a new viewpoint, such as a professional healing a patient from suffering. The last outlook that mainly inhibits this practice from becoming legal are current medical codes, although these regulations will likely be further deciphered and reconsidered in the future. The other perspectives are from the family and patient relationships. So it is common for fatal diseases to lead to a patient fearing their own family's views and even believing they are a burden to them. As these thoughts are likely to negatively impact the patient further, a patient may view assisted suicide as a superior option instead of adding to false negative thoughts. When attempting to cure a patient, respiration and circulation trickles through their body, which may give families distorted impressions on the person's genuine condition. As the family may believe the patient is healing, it is likely for the patient to feel otherwise and possibly not speak up about how they truly view their condition. Although with assisted suicide, the family would be able to understand the patient's condition and know how they genuinely feel. As time in the hospital causes extreme medical expenses, prolonging the life of a patient without a will to live may not serve a favorable option because the patient is unlikely to recover from a terminal illness. This slide includes all of the sources that were used to find the information incorporated throughout this presentation, and the website from where the Google Slides template was found is also listed. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation.